Alrighty, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Brian Mongkolpoonsuk, Customer Success Manager here at KETIV Technologies, and today we're going over how to get started with Fusion 360. Now, this is a session intended for those users who are brand new to CAD or coming from a different software, and of course, new to Fusion 360. And I know there's a ton of resources online, and if you don't know where to start, this is a good high-level overview of Fusion 360 as a whole. And this is kind of like the video I would want if I were to start Fusion 360 today. And this is from someone who has been using Fusion for about 5+ years now. Here's a high-level agenda. When this is uploaded to YouTube in the next couple of days or so, this will be something that I'll have timestamps for in the description on YouTube. So you can reference this later on of where you want to kind of remember when Brian said this, and I'm going to just navigate to that really quickly. So it's going to be about 30 minutes to 45 minutes today that I have allotted for this. There's going to Q&A at the end of this as well. And we're not intending to teach 2D, 3D modeling in this time period. It's not going to be enough time for that by any means. Again, it's like a high-level overview for that. All right, quick introduction about myself. As a CSM, I am here to make sure that any of our customers adopt the tools and services we provide them. I've been using Fusion for about 5+ years now. Was previously an application engineer here at KETIV for Fusion. And a fun fact about me, I have 4 3D printers at home. 3 of them are FDM printers, which is layer on layer, and 1 is a resin SLA printer that's just very smelly and toxic, and I don't like printing with it because it's very messy. And then I also have a CNC router at home that cuts wood that you might have seen on previous Fusion Friday webinars that we used to have that are now integrated into our KETIV Virtual Academy, by the way. And a quick overview of Fusion 360. It's the Swiss Army knife of CAD tools. It's a cloud-based computer-aided design, computer-aided manufacturing, and computer-aided engineering tool. So the CAD side of things, super easy to learn tool. And you'll see why in just a bit. CAM, computer-aided manufacturing, has HSM, or high-speed machining, built into the backbone of it. And so that's a mature CAM tool in itself that was purchased by Autodesk to put into Fusion 360. And then Nastran, the simulation validation tool, is put into the computer-aided engineering, or CAE, backbone of Fusion as well. So it's just a quick overview of what Fusion is. There's more to it as well. Those are just some high-level elevator pitch way to describe Fusion 360. So let's go ahead and dive into the software itself. All right, so here's the user interface for Fusion 360. If you want to get started, you just go ahead and create sketches. It's a quick way to give quick iterations it's an end-to-end solution that can give you the design, and you can send it straight to manufacturing through hopping to the different workflows, which we'll get to in a second here. So after I have a model like this, we can go ahead and hit save. And the first thing I want to dive into regarding Fusion 360 are the 3 pillars it was built upon. So 1 is data management, 2 is collaboration, and 3 is connectivity. Now, the first one, which is data management, is we can go ahead and save this model. Just give it a name there, a location. So it's going to save, people know this as a cloud tool, so it's going to save in the cloud, but it's also going to save locally as well. It's going to be cached locally for the set allotted number of days that you have here in preferences. So here it is. Mine's set to 120. Yours might be at 30 by default. But if you want the offline cache, and I'll explain what this is in a second, if you want this to be a higher number, you can access data that while offline, while not connected to the internet in a greater number of days by adjusting that number there. So when I hit save there, if we draw our attention to the top left, the data panel, it shows us that it was saved here. And if I back out of this, these are all the projects that I have. That's how it's like folders, if you will. And then inside each one, this is under Fusion Fridays project. There is a bunch of folders that we have, and this is number 71. We have a lot of webinars on this, and that's where it's saved here. And at a local level, if I bring over this document, the Autodesk document, it shows us that these are actually saved at this location here if you're using Windows, and this one here if you're using a Mac. I don't recommend going through this as a main workflow by any means, but I just want to bring to your attention, this is where your locally cached data is. And because I always get that question, and I just want to educate you on how the data management works. And here's the location exactly. And then here are the F3D files that you can access, and that's the file extension for Fusion 360. So it saves it locally, and it will be here for the set 120 number of days that I had set in that preferences. And in addition to this, it will also be saved. Let's go ahead and click on this globe in the cloud. And it popped up in this window here. Now, the nice thing about Fusion, which is heading on to pillar number 2, is actually, no, let's still stick on pillar 1. We're almost at pillar 2. Is the ability to view your 3D models in a web browser without any plugins or add-ins. So that rectangular prism I just created, it's going to go ahead and load up here. You could view it on your phone that has a web browser, on a computer that doesn't have Fusion 360 or any preloaded viewer. And you can rotate it around like this with your fingers up on your phone. You could do any comments or markups on this as well, like that, and it'll integrate back into the Fusion on the desktop. So I just type in a comment there. You can explode it if it was an assembly, and you could do section analysis on it as well. So you can do a lot of things inside of the web interface version of it, in addition to viewing all of your data. So it's kind of like Facebook, where you can just sign in via email and password and have access to all of your, I guess, pictures if it was Facebook, and information like that here. You can even see different versions of this model, which I'll dive into when we go back to Fusion. You can see who created it at what instance. It has the data management built in. Going back to that, you can see where it was used, any drawings associated with it as well. So that all can be visible in the web browser version. And you can access that again by going through this globe symbol here, or by searching Fusion 360 and then signing in to the, it's called a Fusion team, if you will, to the Fusion team that way. All right. And when I save this, not only did it save it locally cached and sending it to the cloud, if you click on this V1 here, version 1, it shows who saved that at exactly what time. You can even add a little description next to the name when you hit save to say, oh, I increased the radius, or I created a fillet to the model here. It shows its uses and used in as well. It shows who's working on it at exactly what time. So this is starting to lead into pillar number 2, which is collaboration, which we'll start leading into in just a moment here. And the neat thing about Fusion is that if I created a fillet on this corner, for example, and then I hit save, it'll create another version for us here. And it doesn't ever replace the existing one. It saves on top of the existing one with a little description there as well. So the data management is a huge plus to users, especially experienced CAD users, because 15 plus years ago, when some of the powerful 3D modeling tools were being created, they didn't have power to the internet, to the cloud, to resources like this, where Fusion, created 8 years ago in 2013, has the ability to take advantage of some of these newer technology. All right, so then there's also collaboration. Let's go ahead and dive into the second pillar, which is collaboration. So if we go to our People's tab here, these are the people in this project in particular that can access this data. So if we go back to this home button, this project that we're referring to is this Fusion Friday project. You can see this bunch of other projects that I have here, but this Fusion Friday is one. Those 4 people were able to see the contents of it. So let's say I worked on something late at night and I hit save, but I'm using an older software, and I forgot to pack and go it and send it to my colleague, or I forgot to check it into my PDM tool. With Fusion, all you need to do is just like we did there, is just hit save, and the people in this project would be able to see the updates instantaneously. They would see these updates instantaneously as I hit save there, as opposed to waiting for me to go the extra mile and have to, or put in the extra effort to have to manage the data and send it to them, making sure I have everything intact. In addition to inviting people at the project level, you have the ability to invite people at the hub level as well, just to give you an understanding of how that works. So everyone in this project can see only what's in that project. They can't see contents of other projects. But if you're an admin, like I am here of the hub, you have the ability to see this members and roles tab and assign or unassign people to see it at the hub level. So if I go back to my home page here, this is the hub level of my Fusion 360 called the KETIV Fusion team. And anyone in this hub can see all of these projects, for example. So there's 2 tiers of that. I just want to make you familiar with that. If you have any questions in regards to that, I'm providing my email at the end of this, so you can reach out to me with those questions. All right, so very powerful to be able to collaborate with users that they didn't have access to that kind of technology. At least they integrate, they're trying to integrate it back into it now, but this is built into the backbone of Fusion. While we're in the data panel here, I want to draw our attention all the way down. Let's say you wanted to, you're looking at YouTube videos of how to create toolpads because you're using this for computer aided manufacturing. You're new to this and you kind of want a sample of it. Well, you don't have to download it from anywhere else. It's already in your data panel. You can see here CAM samples is what I was referring to. There's also some design samples, electronics. There's PCB integration with Eagle in here as well. Gen design, simulation samples. So let's go ahead and focus on CAM samples. The example I like to use is the gearbox one. There it is right there. And this is a nice way to see your to see the toolpads as opposed to just a video of it or having to download it. It's already here, and you can click on it and see exactly how this was set up, what tools they used, their work coordinate system, what linkages they use. Not trying to dive too deep into the details of CAM here, but essentially you can see pre-made, predefined toolpads that you can even simulate without having to do anything here from scratch. And you can essentially copy what they have here already made and use it as an example. So you're not starting from scratch by yourself. You're not alone in the process here, which is really nice. So it's nice to have samples as opposed to just referencing videos online. At the end of this, I will also be sharing with you learning resources to learn the CAD and CAM, in addition softwares online as well, like a learn at your own pace kind of videos. So that will be here at the end. So yeah, there's sample files for not only CAM, but there's also for generative design, which is a popular one. If you're exporting files to to Fusion and you want to be able to run a generative design shape optimization simulation on it, you could do it in here. And if you want to look at samples for that, here's some ready to generate ones. And here's one of an Alcoa bracket. And if you want to generate this, so Fusion 360 being on the cloud has some tools that can be used on the cloud or off the cloud, and then some tools that must use the cloud. Some of those that are must, it's really generative design is one of the main ones, where it'll cost 33 cloud credits in this case to run the simulation. And then when you want to export the simulation, it will cost about 100 cloud credits as of January 13th, 2022. Depending on the complexity, of course, of some of your designs and tasks that you're asking it to do. But this will offload it to the cloud, so then you can work while this is being generated. So there's a lot more to the cloud. In addition to just storing data there, it also helps you to create your simulations or run your simulations. And I did skip over one thing. Let me just go back to it, if you don't mind here. It's going back to the cache that we talked about previously. I'm going to be curious how to edit that to the back to the cache and timestamp here. But if we go back to the Fusion Fridays here, so I want to talk about working offline real quick here. So if you plan to go to the Bahamas or something, you plan to bring your laptop, how dare you, to vacation, and you don't have internet access, you can run a simulation, as in you can run a test to see what data you have access to while offline. So if you go to this job status mode and go offline, you can see what data you have access to. So this rectangular prism, it is cached. We recently created it, so it's within that 120 days time period. If I go back to, let's say, the first webinar we did, it looks like I only have access to this CAD sculpt demo because I actually opened it this morning. But the rest of these are grayed out. That's because we haven't touched those in 120 days. So if you're going to go to the Bahamas or not have internet access, what we recommend is right-clicking on it and adding it to offline cache. And then that way it stores it locally. So when you do lose connection to the internet, you'll have access to it and it's not grayed out like that. All right, just a quick flashback to one of the previous things in our agenda here today. All right, moving forward, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the preference options that we have here. So, of course, when you're modeling, you want to make sure, first and foremost, you're modeling with the right units. So you have different ways to go about this. I think we're still in offline mode. Let me go back online. So let's talk about a couple of things here in preferences. So the first one is the units that I was mentioning. English units, inches, or metric, millimeters. You have that option there. You also have that option here in the browser tree, which we'll dive into. There's also the ability to change your mouse settings. So if you're coming from SOLIDWORKS, you can change it back to that. This changes the orbit, where you can just click the middle mouse button and it'll orbit, whereas Fusion and Inventor would be holding shift and middle mouse button to orbit, and vice versa for pan. So you have those settings here. You also have access to a lot of preview features. This is actually bigger than you might think because there's a lot of previews that are coming into Fusion or have been in here for a while. Now, previews are free for the most part. They're free and they're essentially, it's like beta mode, if you will, but they're pretty mature because some of these have been in here for a while and they leave it in here because they might run into a bug here or there. But for the most part, it works pretty fantastic. If you scroll down here, there's any CAD functionality that you can turn on. There has been a recent last 6 months mesh improvement to the workspace. We did webinars on that, of how to handle meshes really well inside of Fusion. So you could turn that on. Generative design. There's now some for fluid, which is crazy. Going down here to manufacture. There's a lot of manufacture. As you can tell, it's one of the most popular workspaces inside of Fusion. Hence the connectivity, which is pillar number 3, which we'll be diving into. And then there's simulation at the bottom here. Alex did one last month on plastic injection. I did one on electronics cooling previously as well. So all that is located here in preview. So definitely check that out. And it might be worth playing around with it earlier on. So then when it's formally released, it might cost money later down the line. It might cost cloud credits. So you can decide now whether or not you'd want to use it, and you can even help provide feedback on it to the Fusion community. So that's preview features here in a nutshell. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the workspace of Fusion 360. It's a pretty standard, easy to learn user interface going from left to right here at the top of the design workspace here. You can hop between the different workspaces here, which leads to pillar number 3, which is connectivity. Instead of having to maintain 5 different softwares for simulation, manufacturing, generative design, and things like that, you have all that access here in the workspace. So you don't have to pay subscription for those. You don't have to maintain them on the latest version. As you can tell here, Fusion doesn't have a year associated to it. It's not 2022 or anything like that. It's just Fusion 360 because it always updates in the background every couple of weeks or so. So you never have to worry about updating it yourself. As long as it might notify you here whether a new version has been updated. You just need to close and open the software, and then you'll have the latest version. And there are a lot of small ones rather than large, risky ones that the older softwares are accustomed to. So going back to the pillars of connectivity, you have those options here to quickly hop between. So if I wanted to create a CAM toolpaths, as you saw on the Gearbox example, I can just quickly hop to that workspace, create any toolpaths I need, and then hop back to the design workspace if I need to here, instead of having to go through the hassle of the data. This is kind of like tying in data management without having to export, without having to pack and go and sending it to that third-party Mastercam, for example, software. So it's all built in here, and then any design changes I make will update automatically inside the CAM workspace, for example. Okay, so going back to the user interface, here at the top right-hand side, you have this view cube. You can left mouse click and drag it around. You can click on the corners to navigate to an isometric view, a front view, the top view, or an edge view like that. Or you can designate a home view to whatever view you want that to be. In this case, it's set to this isometric view. You also have the navigation bar to give you an orbiting capabilities. You have the look at command, which I like a lot, which allows you to look perpendicular or normal to a face that you click on. You have panning options, zooming options, display settings for wireframe, pretty standard stuff that you would expect is all located down here. And then you also have grids and snaps, but then also viewports is view different parts of the model all at the same time here. In case you want to like show screen and present this to someone. All right, and then let's draw attention over here to the browser. So here in the browser, this is like your design tree, if you will, if you want to use other lingo. It shows who has this open also at what time or right now. So in case someone's making a change to it, you can see their name or their initial, and you can let them know, hey, I'm also working on this. it'll never, again, it won't ever replace each other's data. It'll just save on top. So you still don't have to worry about that part. I never have to worry about like the data management when it comes to Fusion 360, which is always nice. You can also change your units here, like you did in preferences. You have the different views you can access from like the view cube, like the top view, front view. That's accessible there. You have your origin, so your work coordinate system, where you can call upon the different planes and axes, and you can toggle the visibility with the eyeball button there. And then any bodies and sketches are located here. If you ever just lose the lodge of your browser and you're moving this around and this browser is just hung up there, you can always bring it back and lock it back in by dragging it to that green line there. It works the same on this side as well. It just locks in. So just in case you start losing that ability there. And you also have a comments. I don't use this one as much, but you have a comments capability. So if you go under view and you go to show comments, this tab right here pops up. And remember that comment we made earlier regarding the corner? Oh, this is regarding rectangular prism number 2. I made a comment on, what was that model? I think I made a comment on that. Hit save there. Give me a moment here. Well, the comments can be moved around as well about the workspace here. Let me just double check where I made that comment. Because I'm pretty sure I created it for this. But I'm not sure why it's not showing. But I'll come back to that in a moment. But if you would be able to see that comment here that anyone makes, whether it's in here, you can make the comment in here itself if you want to. And it'll show who made that comment at exactly what time. So any collaboration communication will be captured here in Fusion 360. So you don't have to kind of find that via screenshots and emails and Teams messages and Slacks, if you will. That can all be found here under comments. I don't use this one as much personally, but that is an option here for you. And I'm just going to dock that at the bottom left, or you can just turn it off, the visibility, if you don't want to use that at all there. All right, now I want to draw our attention to, so we're talking about the browser and how there were bodies and sketches and visibility and things like that. If you look down below here, there is also a timeline that shows the steps in which this was created. So if I hit the play button here, it shows a sketch to the extrusion. It went pretty fast there, to the fillet, and then this other sketch that has nothing to do with anything. So I'm just going to delete that. So if you ever want to go back to a particular feature, that is all located here in the timeline. And the nice thing about it is it's a sequential, of course. So if I make a change to this right here to narrow that, it'll update the fillet or the extrusion, which will update the fillet. And you can also drag this back if you want to kind of ignore certain features that were done and then later drag it back for it to update. That works just as well. Another feature worth mentioning regarding the timeline that allows you to see kind of what features there are if there are multiple components, if you will, in here. If you go to this cabinet assembly I made a while ago, and if we turn on, and it's noted by an assembly with these 3 boxes here. If we turn on component colors cycling toggle, you can see the yellow, green, and blue. And then you can see that represented these colors here. And you can see that here in the timeline. So if you want to see or edit the features, and there's so many different features without this, of this yellow component there, you know that it's represented by these 4, this extrusion here, and then those sketches here. So if I wanted to like change the height of this, for example, it just shrunk my cabinet to a smaller cabinet. So yeah, that helps to kind of navigate you through the timeline, navigate you through some of the browser as well. And then if you want it to look more professional, you can turn it off. All right. And then let's go ahead and take a look at keyboard shortcuts now. So you're going to start adopting this more. The more you use Fusion, the faster you'll be at it, of course, with any tool. So some of the keyboard shortcuts, well, all of them are located here on this website here. You can just search keyboard Fusion 360 keyboard shortcuts. I'm going to go ahead and post this in the chat room here. I need to send it to everyone. Nobody saw that. Okay. Keyboard shortcuts. So go ahead and bookmark that and write down whatever is the most relevant to you. The most ones that I use, L for line tool. So if I could draw on this face here, I could draw a line there, or some lines. E for extrude, so I can maybe cut away from the model there. P for project, to project the sketch. O for offset. So just a bunch of different tools that I just have ingrained in my DNA because I use this so much. F for fillet. Mind you, this is the 3D fillet and not the 2D sketch fillet. And then T for trim. So let me go into the sketch here. You do T for trim. Anyways, you get the idea. I shouldn't have actually trimmed that because it's being referenced there. But yeah, keyboard shortcuts, super efficient and way quicker than having to dig through in here. And it skips a couple steps too. And if you're curious what keyboard shortcuts there are, it's also located here next to the name of the feature or the tool. And then of course, after talking about keyboard shortcuts, I want to talk about the toolbox. So if you know the name of the tool and you're coming from a third-party tool and you're like, what is the circular diameter tool? S as in Sam on your keyboard brings you to design shortcuts. And this allows you to have a little menu that you can customize to whatever tools you want to be able to access. So center diameter circle would be the one I want to use here. And then I want to be able to just go through with that there. But yeah, S on your keyboard, you can remove certain features away from this. You can add certain ones. So if I want to do an arc, like a 3-point arc, actually that's already here. Let me go a tangent arc. If I hit this arrow here, it adds that. So now if I hit S, I can easily access the tangent arc. Or if I search for, let me do the line tool. If I search for it, I can access it that way as well from a menu of options. So I guess this is useful if you're someone who knows a lot of the tools by name, but not necessarily by location in the platform here. All right, marking menu is next. So this is another quick way to, as you progress your learning experience with Fusion. So the last tool we used was maybe extrusion, because I just cut that triangle. So if I right click and hold in the right click mouse button, I have this clock marking menu. And if I release in the 12 o'clock, I get to repeat the last command I did. Very useful tool to have. You have also other tools here as well that you have access to. So it's not only that. So then it can go really quick if you right click and release in the 12 o'clock direction without even having to see it. You know it's there and you know it's the last tool you use. So that's just when you get really, really quick with Fusion. There's also other uses for the marking menu or the right click. So if we're editing that sketch and I wanted to make this construction line, if you're familiar with that, especially from like AutoCAD or something, you can right click on the line itself and turn that into a construction line, which is dashed like that, or you can use other sketching functionalities in here as well. So don't forget to also do right clicks on your models, and it'll make suggestions to what it thinks it wants you to do. And since I made that construction line, it gives us a little warning here as to there's an error or there's a warning with this. It doesn't think that this is appropriately designed, since construction lines shouldn't be part of the line there. But that's what you'll learn in like sketching 101 for Fusion 360. And I guess in CAD in general. All right, let's move on to add-ins and extensions. So if you're looking to, for example, a use case for an add-in. So if we go back to the sketch here, and let's create some more lines. And let's say I wanted to kind of close this shape off, but not quite. Back up. My mouse wheel is a little messed up here. Let's say you wanted to close that shape off, but not quite, and you don't know why. Like, I can't extrude this because it's not a complete profile. It needs to be completely closed polygon for that. You can use something that's in the add-in. If we go here to the App Store, the Autodesk App Store, go to Fusion 360. There's a lot of different, and you can see all the popular ones here. There's gear generators and things like that. What I'm looking for is this sketch checker, and it's free. This allows me to determine where my sketch has maybe an issue with the profile. It's not being closed all the way. So I already downloaded this with a quick little download. And then if you close Fusion and open it back up again, now we have this check sketch. You don't have this out of the box. This is an add-in that someone made, and that's useful for the rest of us. So you hit check sketch. It just highlighted that as a dark blue there. Excuse my zoom because it's my mouse. You can see it's highlighting 2 dots where the sketch is broken. It's like a sketch doctor, if you will, in some of the other lingos. So that's just one use case of an add-in. Let me go ahead and paste that I'll paste this add-in into our chat room here, so you have access to that. All right. And then there are also extensions that I want to just bring up. So extensions here, this allows you to, it's kind of like an add-in, but these are more, or previews, but these are formal. They're paid. You would have to pay for these. So if you want unlimited access to the generative design that we were referring to previously, you can get that extension here. If you want to take advantage of nesting, which is relatively new to Fusion, you can access that here, and other tools here as well. So just wanted to bring that up. Fusion's also available and has been for a while now on the phone. So if you have a phone application, or if you have just a regular, like an iPhone or something like that, or an Android, you can download the Fusion 360 app on your phone. And I'm going to see if I can share my video here. So that's me. And then there is, I wonder if I could do a gallery, but here's a model that I have here on my phone that I'm able to rotate around. I want to make sure I'm not being blurred out there, that I'm able to rotate around and zoom in and out on my phone here on the application. So just wanted to show that. Nothing else too much, but just want to show that it's a free app that's available for you to use. And it connects to the data. So what we were saving earlier with the rectangular prism, you'll see instantaneously on your phone, which is really nice. Good to show customers, good to show colleagues as well. So it's a nice tool to have in addition. And I put here in the agenda cloud power. So not only do you use the cloud for powering something like generative design, it can also be used for something like rendering as well. So you can do renders local or on the cloud. See, local or on the cloud, and it takes a certain amount of cloud credits depending on the size of the rendering you want to do. I think it was 4,000 by 4,000 pixels or 2 feet by 2 feet. So it's max size. So definitely take a shot at that. If you do it locally, you'll start to hear your computer heat up or rev the fan. And if you do it on the cloud, it outsources that. But yeah, I would play with it local first before, if you don't have like a million cloud credits like we do here. I would play with it local first, but that's one of the tools that you can use on the cloud. Another tool you can use that uses the power of the cloud is simulation, which is a big one, where you're able to run static stress modal analysis on your model. And again, this was the Nastran built into the software, which is the same kind of technology that took NASA astronauts to the moon. So essentially, you could run these studies on the cloud as well, just like the rendering, or you could run it locally for them. All right, and then I want to also put in the self-paced learning for Fusion 360. So if I were to go back 5 years and starting to learn Fusion, and I wanted to see, okay, where can I best learn Fusion? It's going to be through this self-paced course. So let me go ahead and paste that in the chat room. So you could probably find it through Google, but that's what it looks like here. And here's a larger version of it, but this is the website with that Autodesk made with just a bunch of videos you have access to with all the different types of topics. So I highly recommend checking that out. And then again, to the keyboard shortcuts, but then also put down my email address. Reach out to me if you have any questions, which you probably will as you go out your Fusion 360 journey, or you can reach out to support@ketiv.com for those questions. And if you have support with us, we can take a step further and help you more with that. And if you'd like to buy training from us, let us know there as well. So I'll go ahead and open up the floor for any questions you may have regarding Fusion 360, how to get started, any questions at all. And if not, you can find this recording on YouTube in a couple of days with the timestamps from that agenda on there for your reference. Yeah, if you're coming from someone who has the product design and manufacturing, or if the company that you have has the product design and manufacturing collection, you do have access to Fusion. You just need to make sure it's assigned to you, the collection is, and then you can go ahead and start using Fusion 360. We have videos also on sending data to and from Fusion if you want to take advantage of those tools like generative design. That's kind of mostly in Fusion 360. So. All right, I don't see any questions coming in. Not sure if there's anything coming in from YouTube either, but it's pretty quiet bunch this morning or afternoon. So appreciate you guys hopping on and spending the time of your day. Hopefully this was helpful to you. But with that said, we'll go ahead and close it out. Thank you all again for joining. My name is Brian Mongkolpoonsuk. Have a good day, everyone.